Eo stepped off the overcrowded bus, his small bag clutched tightly to his chest. The Lagos sun beat down like a merciless overseer, turning the dusty streets into rivers of heat and chaos. Sweat soaked his shirt almost immediately, and the smell of exhaust fumes mixed with the faint aroma of grilled meat from a nearby roadside stall. People surged past him in waves, shouting, bargaining, laughing, and occasionally colliding. Horns blared from the congested traffic, weaving into a chaotic symphony that made his head spin. Lagos was nothing like his quiet village, with its calm dusty roads and the predictable rhythm of life. Here, every moment demanded attention, every step required awareness, and every face carried a story he could not yet read. He hesitated, wondering where to begin. The bus had dropped him at the edge of the city, far from any familiar landmark. The streets seemed endless, a jungle of buildings, market stalls, and people. He could feel his pulse racing, equal parts excitement and fear. This was the city of opportunity he had dreamed about, the place where he might make a life for himself, or get swallowed entirely by its vastness. As he hesitated, a voice called out, sharp and amused. "You look lost, stranger." A girl sat on a crate beside a small cart of bottled water, her dark eyes scanning him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "First time in Lagos?" she asked, tilting her head. He nodded. She smiled faintly. "Stick with me," she said, hopping down from the crate. "The city eats unprepared people alive." Before he could protest, she grabbed his arm and tugged him toward a narrow alley hidden between two low buildings. The street noise became muffled, replaced by the closer hum of vendors packing up for the day, the occasional call of a fruit seller, and the murmur of people huddled in small courtyards. The alley was crowded but quieter, an unseen artery feeding into the pulse of the city. "My name's Zoe," she said. "Follow me if you want to survive." Her confidence was contagious, and despite his nerves, Eo felt a spark of hope. Maybe he could navigate this city after all, maybe he could find a place to belong in this chaotic, breathing organism called Lagos. He swallowed hard and took a deep breath. "I'm Eo," he replied, letting himself be led into the alley. The city loomed around him, vast and unpredictable, and for the first time, he felt the thrill of being somewhere that could either destroy him, or make him stronger than he had ever imagined. Eo followed Zoe through the narrow alley, his senses overwhelmed. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist with every step, and the smell of damp concrete mixed with the lingering aroma of fried plantains and roasted corn. People brushed past them, some offering quick smiles, others ignoring their existence entirely. Zoe moved with a purpose, weaving through the crowd as if she were part of the city itself. "You need to learn quickly," she said, her voice low but firm. "Lagos doesn't wait. If you hesitate, it eats you alive." Eo nodded, trying to absorb everything. He had imagined the city as a place of endless possibilities, but the reality was raw and demanding. Each street corner seemed alive, a crossroad of opportunity and danger. A boy darted past them, snatching a vendor's wallet, and Eo instinctively froze. Zoe gave him a sharp look. "Eyes open," she said. "Everything here moves fast, and if you blink, you'll miss, or worse." They arrived at a small courtyard tucked between two old buildings. A few kids lounged on crates, some playing makeshift drums, while others sold snacks to passing pedestrians. The walls were cracked and stained, but the space had an odd warmth, a sense of hidden community. Zoe waved to a couple of them, and they nodded in recognition. "This is where we start," she said, setting her water bottles down on a crate. "Learn to move, sell, survive." She handed Eo a bottle. "Shout prices loud, move fast, don't trust anyone you don't know, and always watch your back." Eo's heart raced as he tried to memorize her instructions. He had never sold anything before, let alone in a city that seemed determined to chew newcomers alive. He took a deep breath and stepped into the street, mimicking Zoe's movements. She darted forward, weaving through traffic and shouting her prices with practiced ease. Eo followed, his voice cracking slightly as he repeated her calls. To his surprise, some people actually bought bottles. By evening, they returned to the courtyard with a handful of naira, enough for a small meal. Ao felt exhausted but exhilarated. The city had already tested him, and he had survived. Sitting beside a flickering lantern, Zay smiled. "Not bad for your first day," she said. "You've got grit, I'll give you that. Lagos might be big and scary, but it rewards those who try." Ao watched the city lights flicker beyond the walls, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional shout echoing through the alleys. He realized that survival in Lagos wasn't just about strength or speed, it was about learning, adapting, and trusting the few who truly had your back. For the first time since he arrived, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe he could belong here after all. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Ao wiped sweat from his brow, feeling the exhaustion of his first day in Lagos. Yet, the city's rhythm had begun to pull him in, a chaotic pose that demanded attention and rewarded daring. Zai led him down a narrow side street, the air filled with the scent of grilled meat, exhaust fumes, and the faint aroma of damp concrete. "Watch closely," Zai whispered, pointing toward a small open area where a crowd had gathered. "This is Tond. You'll want to meet him." Ao peered through the crowd. A young man balanced on a wooden crate, juggling knives with an almost careless ease. Flames flickered from a nearby street lantern, highlighting the sharp glint of the knives as they spun through the air. The crowd cheered, some holding small bets in their hands, others clapping in rhythm with the performers' movements. Tond caught sight of them and jumped down, landing lightly on the cracked pavement. His grin was wide, teeth gleaming in the fading sunlight. "You two look like you just survived your first day," he said, voice playful but sharp. "Or maybe you just got lucky." Ao swallowed, feeling nervous under Tond's piercing gaze. Zay nudged him forward. "This is Ao," she said. "He's new to the city. Trying to survive." Tond extended a hand, which Ao shook cautiously. "Survival." Tond laughed. "You'll need more than grit. Lagos eats the unprepared alive, but it also rewards cleverness, speed, and courage. Stick with us, and maybe you'll make it." He gestured toward the crowd and their makeshift performances. "We make our way in the city by watching, learning, and sometimes daring. There are no rules beyond survival, but that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities. You've got to read the streets like a map, understand the rhythm, and know when to move fast or stand still." Ao felt a spark of admiration and fear. Tond seemed larger than life, a creature of Lagos itself, sharp-eyed, quick-moving, fearless. For the first time, he realized he wasn't alone. With Zoe and now Tond, he might navigate the city successfully, even thrive. The three walked back toward the courtyard, weaving through the late afternoon crowd. Tond talked animatedly about street life, his encounters with gangs, and the subtle ways Lagos rewarded those who could think and act fast. Ao listened intently, realizing that survival was more than selling water, it was understanding the pulse of the city, reading its dangers, and carving out one's own space amidst the chaos. That night, as the city lights flickered and the distant wail of sirens filled the air, Ao felt a cautious optimism. He was no longer just a newcomer. With Zoe and Tond, he had allies, guides, and perhaps, for the first time, a sense of belonging in Lagos. The city was already stirring when Ao awoke, the morning sun casting golden light over the rooftops. Birds chirped in brief bursts, drowned quickly by the hum of traffic, the shouting of street vendors, and the clatter of metal on asphalt. Ao rubbed his tired eyes and noticed Tond sharpening his knives while Zay arranged water bottles and snacks on a crate. Their routine had become strangely comforting, three outsiders carving out a small corner of the city, surviving one day at a time. "Today, we test more than your courage," Zay said as they stepped into the crowded streets. "We test your judgment." Ao frowned. He had faced physical challenges before, but moral ones were new. As they moved through the market, a boy no older than Ao darted past, clutching a loaf of bread he hadn't paid for. He stumbled near their feet, panic flashing across his face. Zoe's eyes narrowed. "Do we let him go?" she whispered. Ao hesitated. On one hand, rules were rules, on the other, the boy's fear mirrored his own from only a few days ago. Before he could answer, Tan stepped forward. "Sometimes survival in Lagos isn't just about avoiding trouble," he said quietly. "It's about knowing when mercy matters." Ao watched as Tan discreetly returned the bread to the vendor, whispering something in rapid Yoruba. The vendor nodded, satisfied, and the boy scurried away, gratitude mixed with lingering fear on his face. "You see," Tan said, clapping Ao's shoulder. "The city teaches you in unexpected ways. Strength and cunning are important, yes, but compassion is a skill too. Learn it, and people will remember you." As the day unfolded, Ao followed Zoe and Tan through streets lined with chaotic stalls, negotiating with vendors, dodging reckless motorcyclists, and learning subtle cues, when to raise his voice, when to retreat, when to smile. Each interaction became a lesson in human behavior, survival, and ethics. By evening, they returned to their courtyard, a modest profit in hand and exhaustion weighing on their limbs. Ao sat quietly beside Zoe as she repaired a torn piece of cloth, her hands deft despite their grime. "I used to think Lagos was just about making money," he admitted. "Now I see it's about people, how you treat them, how they treat you, and how you survive together." Zoe smiled faintly. "Exactly. You keep your heart in the right place, and you might just make it here. Forget that, and the city will chew you up before you know it." Ao looked out toward the distant glow of the city skyline, feeling a strange mixture of fear, excitement, and belonging. Lagos was brutal, chaotic, and beautiful, and he was learning how to navigate it, step by careful step. The following morning, the heat of Lagos rose almost immediately, making the pavement shimmer and the air thick with humidity. Ao woke before dawn, nerves tangled with excitement. He had survived his first day and met Tan, but the city's lessons were only beginning. He washed his face in a tin basin of water in the courtyard and ate a small portion of bread Zoe had saved. Tan was already awake, juggling a few knives absent-mindedly as he paced. "Today," Tan said, tossing a knife up and catching it, "you learn that survival isn't just about selling water. It's about movement, observation, and knowing when to run or stand your ground. Lagos doesn't forgive hesitation." Ao followed them into the crowded streets. He clutched the water bottles like armor, trying to mimic Zoe's confident steps. At first, he stumbled, nearly knocking over a street vendor's tray of roasted yams and drawing a sharp look. Zoe's hand nudged him gently. "Slow down and watch," she said. "The city moves fast, but it has its own rhythm. Learn it." As they approached a busy intersection, a motorcyclist nearly collided with Ao, barely swerving in time. He froze, heart hammering, while Tan backed, "Keep moving. Hesitation kills." The lesson sank in. Lagos was relentless, indifferent to fear. By mid-morning, they reached a busy market street. Ao noticed the subtle signals, which vendors were distracted, which corners were safe, which alleyways hid trouble. A man loitering near a fruit stall seemed too interested in their movements. Zoe whispered, "Watch him. If he comes closer, we split." Moments later, the man brushed past, attempting to snatch a bottle. Ao froze, but instinctively, he grabbed Zoe's arm. Tan intercepted, using a sharp voice and sudden motion to scare him off. The encounter left Ao shaken, his heart pounding, but also alive in a new way. By noon, the trio returned to the courtyard with a modest profit. Ao's legs ached, his throat was dry, but he felt a strange exhilaration. He had faced danger, followed instructions, and survived. For the first time, the city didn't seem quite so impossible. That evening, as Lagos lights flickered and the distant sound of sirens echoed through the alleys, Ton smiled at him. Not bad, Eo. Today you learned something crucial: the city rewards those who pay attention. Forget that, and it will swallow you whole. Eo stared at the glowing skyline, feeling the enormity of the challenge ahead. Lagos was more than a city, it was a test, and for the first time, he felt he might pass. The morning sun was relentless, painting the streets of Lagos in a harsh, unforgiving light. Eo adjusted the strap of his bag, feeling the weight of his small bundle of water bottles pressing against his shoulder. Today, Ton had promised, they would venture into a busier part of the city, where opportunities were greater, and so were the risks. Zai led the way, nimble as ever, weaving between stalls, avoiding carts, and ducking under hanging clotheslines. Eo followed as best he could, heart pounding. The closer they got to the main market road, the louder the city became. Horns blared, vendors shouted, and the scent of fried food and exhaust burned his nose. He felt both exhilarated and terrified. Ton spotted trouble first. Two men, leaning casually against a wall, watched the trio with sharp, calculating eyes. Zai sensed it immediately. "Pickpockets," she whispered, tugging Eo behind her. Eo froze as one of the men stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "Hand over your money," the taller one demanded, voice low but menacing. Eo's stomach twisted, his mind blank. He had never faced such danger directly before. The city's lessons, observation, caution, rushed through him, but fear threatened to paralyze him. Ton stepped forward, fist clenched. "Not today," he said firmly. He raised his voice just enough to draw attention, startling the men. Zari moved to flank Eo, eyes flashing determination. Eo felt a strange surge inside him, something between fear and resolve. He remembered the boy from the market yesterday, the lessons about mercy and quick thinking. He gritted his teeth, stepped slightly forward, and shouted, "Back off." His voice cracked, but the defiance was enough. The men hesitated. Ton's sudden movement and Zai's unwavering glare created a momentary standoff. Then, grumbling, the taller one shoved his companion and stepped back into the shadows, disappearing down the alley. Eo's legs trembled, adrenaline coursing through him. Ton clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Well done, Eo. That's the city talking to you, and you answered back." Zai smiled faintly. "You're learning fast. Lagos doesn't forgive hesitation, but it rewards courage." As they walked back to the courtyard, Eo realized something profound. Survival wasn't just about moving quickly or selling water, it was about presence, awareness, and the willingness to stand up even when your body wanted to run. For the first time, he felt he belonged, not just in the courtyard, but in the city itself. That night, as Lagos hummed with distant sirens and the clamor of restless streets, Eo lay on the concrete floor, exhausted but awake with a sense of possibility. He had faced danger, stood his ground, and survived. Lagos was beginning to feel like a place where he could carve his own path.